Hi, everybody. Good evening. We're going to
Hello.
talk really fast because we have a guest that's in the back room. CJ, you want to take off and say anything? You got something to say, sister?
Yeah. First of all, are you coming in clear to everybody? Because I can hear you, but very crackly. So
You're crackly, so it's something you got going there in the car, I think.
okay, no worries. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'm in the car here, so I know my family members will be getting in the car probably in about 15 minutes. So I will mute myself, and then when I get home, depending on what time we are and where we're at, I will transition onto my computer. But I hope everybody has had a great day. And I'm glad I was able to figure this out, how to be on in the car. Half my head is cut off, but it's all right. Whatever. You're not going to be listening and looking at me. You're going to need to pay attention to Andy tonight. So
That's right.
So we're happy that you all are here. And just so you guys know, I don't know, it's kind of irrelevant maybe to you guys, but I put something out on one of my Facebook stories, and we're so grateful for all the rumbles and all the likes and everything that we have on Rumble. Just know that if you guys haven't noticed that you listen to other podcasts and things like that on Rumble, for some reason, Rumble has been really wonky over the past 24, 48 hours. We see where you guys have commented, but sometimes it'll say we've had 0 views and things like that. But we know that you guys are viewing it, and we know that you guys really enjoyed Luke on Monday night, and that we had a great show coming up tonight. And I know Trina did a little something on both of our behalfs last night, which I really greatly appreciate that she did that. So just be aware that we're aware of the glitches going on with the entire platform. We don't know what it is, but we see you guys, and we appreciate that you are there.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're not going to keep him in the back room any longer. Here you go. Here's Andy with Miles Franklin, and he's coming to educate y'all because that is not something CJ and I are great at. We are learning every time we listen to him. I don't think he wants to hire us yet, though. Oh, you're muted, Andy.
There we go. How y'all doing?
We're great. How are you?
Good. I am great, thank you. Good to see you both. Good to be back.
Yes, good to see you.
Have you been super busy?
Yeah, I have been. It's been it's just pretty much craziness in this industry these days. So it's a good thing, not complaining about it, but 18-hour days are not unusual 6-7 days a week these days. It's quite a ride, quite an experience.
So just out of curiosity's sake, can I ask you, if we're talking to someone that's like a stockbroker or something like that, CJ, you're going to mute yourself, honey. And that makes noise that's you hearing that crackling. Yeah, thank you. When the stock market opens and they talk about, it's open in China and then it rolls over and it opens in London, then it rolls to America because of the time of the day and everything.
You're talking the precious metals market.
Well, I've always heard it with the stock market, but my question is does the metal market do it the same?
Yeah. So, the stock market, when it closes in New York, it's closed. When it opens in New York, it's open. The other markets are individual platforms. So, the market in the United Kingdom is the market in the United Kingdom. It has nothing to do with the market in the United States. The indices that are around the globe have nothing to do with
okay.
the New York Stock Exchange. Sorry we had someone at the door. In any case, the bottom line is simply this, is that the gold market, however, is traded globally. Okay. And that is how it works. When it closes in New York, it moves eastward towards Asia. It goes from Asia then, and when Asia closes, it moves to the UK and the London market. And when London closes, we circle the globe again back to the United States. So by and large, the gold market trades pretty much 24 hours a day. There are a few minutes in between as it goes from one hub to another. And in that space, it's called the access market. And while I can still make trades, there really isn't an open platform. There's not much in the way of volume or liquidity in those access markets. The only time that the market sleeps in regards to precious metals would be from 5 o'clock, roughly 5 o'clock Eastern on Friday to 6 o'clock Eastern on, let's go 6 o'clock Eastern Friday to 6 o'clock Eastern Sunday. The market sleeps, and then it opens back up in Asia, typically around 6 p.m. Eastern time. Here in the States, it's just opening up in Asia.
Okay. So I had those kind of backwards. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, no, that is, I mean, that is how it would work. But when those markets are not connected, they're independent. The Nikkei, as an example, has nothing to do with the Dow Jones, and so. But in the case of precious metals, that price is traveling around the globe. Now, there are different exchanges in those countries that trade it, but the price is world over as we talk about gold and silver. It would not be exclusive to the Asian market. If I do a trade for someone in the middle of the night, it would be based off the current price in Asia. So that's a 24-hour marketplace for precious metals. And in respect to the equity markets here, when the market closes in New York, that's it. You're not able to place a trade, and when you do, you place that trade, and then it gets executed when the market opens in the morning here in New York.
Okay. So I've seen some interesting things happen in the last 4 or 5 days on different news reports with gold situations, and like I think it was. I should have pulled the articles up, but I suck so bad at sharing my screen. I'm not smooth with that at all. Mm-hmm. But it was, I believe, Chicago, like a bank in Chicago that had like there's 40% of their gold that they actually traded out.
Close. What you're talking about is something that's very important. Actually, it's something I've been talking an awful lot about. So you're reading the right stories, but let's clarify it a little bit.
I was just going to say, since I don't have it pulled up, yeah, I probably didn't get that right.
So the market in Chicago you're talking about is the CME, which is the commodity exchange. It's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. This is where gold is traded here in the States. And what you read is something that, by and large, I've been talking about this for the past 2 years. And that is the drawdown of physical metal off of the commodity exchanges. And the CME is, if you ever watched the movie Trading Places, that took place on the CME. It's the commodity exchange where everything from orange juice to wheat to precious metals are traded. In any case, what had happened is that, at least it appears to me, that the very, very, very wealthy private traders, and I say private, and you'll understand why in a moment, are draining the COMEX of physical metal. And to your point of 41%, what had happened was that 41% of the gold bullion in the form of kilo bars was delivered off the CME in one day. The reason I believe it's private investors is that the sovereign governments typically only deal in 100-ounce bars, which is what typically what the COMEX trades in. Although they do have kilo bars, they're not really used for trading on the COMEX. The COMEX has 100-ounce contracts. If I buy a COMEX contract to hedge my physical position, it's always a 100-ounce gold bar. The London Metals Exchange deals in 400-ounce gold bars. It's called a good delivery bar. It's about the size of a loaf of bread. So the kilo bars are in their inventory, but I don't know exactly what they're even used for, other than maybe to backstop some of the gold. They could be melted down and poured into 100-ounce bars. I'm not even exactly sure, but they hold an awful lot of them. And when we talk about 41%, we're talking 175 million ounces of gold. We're talking a massive amount of gold. And again, it's not the typical 100 or 400-ounce bars that the sovereign governments would deal in. So I'm believing it's a group called the Others. And these Others came out of nowhere 2 years ago. The Commodity Exchange publishes a report every week, and it's called the Commitment of Traders Report. And it shows the positioning of the very largest traders on the exchange. Typically, it's the commercial banks on one end, like JP, Goldman, Citi, and the specs, as they call them, on the other end, and that would be the hedge funds. And they're the only two that are ever on this report. until 2020 when they entered a third group of reportables, and they call them the others. And these are believed to be sovereign wealth funds and family offices, and they would be the wealthiest private investors in the world. I would add to that the most well-informed private investors in the world, and well-funded. And so they're the ones I believe that are, let's call them connected individuals who have decided to suddenly take physical possession. Understand withdrawals of this magnitude don't happen very often, if at all. But to put this into perspective, the COMEX 50-day average rate of gold withdrawals just hit an all-time new high because of that, of just under 132,000 ounces a day. So let me put it in perspective. What this really means is that on average, 131,900 ounces or so of gold, roughly $234 million worth, have been withdrawn from the COMEX every day for the past 50 days. That's what 175 million ounces, troy ounces of silver pulled out in physical form, delivered off the exchange. I think the way the article penned it was that these wealthy people believe something wicked comes this way, or this way comes, I think is how they pronounce it. Usually that's how that saying goes, something wicked this way comes. You don't see that kind of volume being drawn down off the COMEX market, if not for something really, really big happening. And we're seeing the same thing happening in silver on not only the COMEX, but also the London Metals Exchange. And so also on SLV, which is the largest ETF in the world that's administered by JP Morgan, which, JP Morgan paid a $920 million fine for suppressing the metals market last year. They are, for whatever reason, in God's green earth, have been allowed to still be the custodian of the largest stockpile of silver in the world. Well, over the last, let me see if I even have it here. Hold on. I think I have the numbers. I read them the other day, and it just absolutely blew me away, kind of supporting what you're talking about. I don't know if I have it, but I think I do. I don't. I'm going to do it from memory. Basically, what it said was that in the past 4 months, the commercial banks, they're called authorized participants. So you and I are not allowed to pull money off of SLV or GLD, the gold and silver ETFs. We can only be paid back in physical cash. And what I read was that this last week, 20 million ounces were taken out of and delivered out of SLV, 60 million over the past month, and 100 million ounces over the past 4 months. Let me put that in perspective for you. There is only 55 million ounces of silver left on the COMEX market in the registered category. That is the category that is available for delivery. They've delivered over 55 million ounces out of COMEX in the last 4 months. In the last 4 months, SLV has delivered twice that amount. And so what you are seeing is a bleeding down of the metal, the physical metal, by the insiders. Now, I talked about those insiders called the others. In this year alone, so far this year, the others, and this was about 2 weeks ago, have taken possession of 10,308,000 ounces of gold, or 321 tons. Now, what makes this so crazy, you guys, is that it's one thing to buy it. It's another thing to take it off the exchange. That's like basically saying, I don't trust you. I'll buy it from you, but I don't trust you, so send it to me. And this is something that I've never seen before in 30 years of watching the COMEX market. So not only are you seeing massive accumulation by the most sophisticated, well-funded, well-informed traders on the globe, more shockingly, more relevant to what you just said about this story, and it's not a bank, it's the COMEX, it's the price-setting mechanism of the world for gold. Something's going on where you're seeing massive deliveries off the exchange to the point where it could begin to destabilize the actual health of the market, could actually render it something called force majeure, where there's just not enough metal there to run the exchanges. And this is probably why we have seen Russia just come out a week ago and say, we want a brand new gold trading platform, a hub that's going to be located in Moscow, simply because the fraudulent manipulation of the London Metals Exchange and the COMEX market needs to be stopped. Now, this was a statement by the Russian central bank that they do not want to be prisoner to the West any longer, and the price setting mechanism on COMEX. And say what you want about Russia, but I will tell you that they're not wrong. The manipulation on COMEX and the London Metals Exchange is extraordinary. And so, the East, Russia, China, India, all of these countries that have an affinity for gold, they haven't bitched for a long time because they've been accumulating it. But now that they've been accumulating so much of it and it's getting harder to get, I think they're darn serious about wanting to switch where this is valued. And here's what can happen. If you were to see Russia do this, here's how the whole price blows up sky high. Let's say, we've been talking a lot about the BRICS nations on your show, how the BRICS are formulating, they're coalescing. They came out recently 2 weeks ago and said, we want to initiate a new world reserve currency. Saudi Arabia said, we want to join the BRICS. Well, that's what makes the dollar world reserve. You see all of these things that are happening, they're accelerating in pace, and they're very frightening as to what could happen to this economy, to the dollar, to interest rates, all of these things if we see this coalition take place, if we see Saudi Arabia move away from the dollar, settlement in oil, these things are all happening. But here's what could happen to make the price of gold blow up. It's called arbitrage. If all of a sudden you see this new gold hub that is catering to the East, to the BRICS nations, all of the Arab nations, and Brazil and Russia and China and India and South Africa, and all of the countries that are coalescing against the dollar, and let's say they peg gold right now, they fix it in Moscow to $2,000 an ounce. So what would happen is that everyone would buy gold on the COMEX, they would take delivery, just like what you saw here, and then they would sell it to Moscow, and they would make that extra $200 spread per ounce, right? Well, they just took off 10,307,900 ounces so far this year, these others. So if that were the case, multiply that times 200. And you're talking billions and billions of dollars that they would make simply by taking it off the exchange in the United States and giving it to Russia, to their exchange, which is now a more accurate reflection of gold, not suppressed by futures contracts that we do on the West, not suppressing the price of gold and silver, because what is gold and silver? It is the canary in the mine shaft. It speaks to the frailty of the US dollar and the Western system. So if that were to happen, immediately it would bleed dry all of the stockpiles of metal in the COMEX market, as traders would take advantage of that arbitrage, and it would move everything east to Moscow, when the price would go to the moon, because now you would have an accurate reflection of price that wasn't manipulated and controlled by the West. This is a big deal. This is another one of these signposts along the way that all speak the same thing. It's signpost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the way to de-dollarization town. And the biggest money in the world is pushing back against the Western hegemony, the Western manipulation, the Western hypocrisy. They look at us as evil, right? They do. And say what you want. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just simply saying this is their perception. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're doing whatever they can, I think, to change the rules. And it seems to be happening right now in real time.
So that was a lot. I'm still processing in my brain. You at the very end, you said about the signpost getting us to a different place. We've never asked you that I know of. We've kind of avoided the whole RV Sarah thing with you. I know you understand some of it because I'm sure you and Mark Z have had conversations about it, and I'm sure you're all versed in it, but it's just not something I think we've brought up here before. Are you feeling that this is a definite larger sign that we're headed in that direction for us to get the gold-backed currency across the world now?
I am. I do believe so. I mean, look, if we remember in 2019 that gold was revalued or reclassified a tier 1 reserve asset. It's the only other one in the world next to US dollars and US treasuries. It's a very massive deal, yet no one talks about it. I've been screaming about it since 2019. I mean, think about that. Since the end of World War II, there's been one tier one reserve asset as far as central banks are concerned, US dollars and treasuries. That's it. It's a riskless asset. It's the equivalent of cash, right, as what they're basically saying. So now you have the largest entities in the world since 2017, massively accumulating gold and silver, mostly gold, the central banks. And now you see the most sophisticated private investors in the world doing the exact same thing. And the one common thread to both the commercial banks, the central banks, and now these private investors, the sovereign wealth funds, the family offices, is that they are all taking possession off of the exchanges. When the central banks started repatriating their gold, they were doing it from New York and the New York Federal Reserve, we've been holding most of the world's gold since the end of World War II. And the reason we did, without getting too deep into a long economics discussion, is that at the end of World War II, we told all of the central banks of the world that we'll hold your gold for you and we'll sell it to you for $35 an ounce. We'll pay you $35 an ounce fixed rate for your gold, and we will always sell it back to you for $35 an ounce. And so what the governments of the world did is they gave us all of their gold. We paid them $35 an ounce for it. They put their money into our treasuries, built our infrastructure. We were perceived at the end of World War II as really the safest place to hold your gold, with all of the instability in Europe after just being ravaged by war, World War I and World War II. They sent all their gold to us. We hold it safely, and we pay them. They put the money into treasuries so they could earn interest on a non-interest bearing investment, because heck, they could always give us back $35 for an ounce of gold. And well, that's what happened until 1971, when de Gaulle in France started to realize we were printing more dollars than we had gold backing it to fund the Vietnam War. And he sent warships over filled with dollars to New York Harbor, said, give us back our gold, which we did. But it bled down half the gold at the Treasury, and Nixon suspended that privilege, closed the gold window. We went back on our word to the world. From that point, the dollar has not been redeemable in gold, but it wasn't until really about 7 or 8 years ago that the central banks of Europe said, you know what, enough is enough. Send us back our gold. It's time. We want it. And they bought it back. So if you look at a common thread in all of this, you have central banks repatriating their gold from the New York Fed and the Bank of England. You have commercial banks amassing massive stockpiles. You have most of the European central banks, all of the Eastern ones, massively accumulating gold. You have China and Russia and India massively accumulating gold. You have it spreading out much further than that now into smaller countries like Kazakhstan is a big purchaser of gold right now. This is a common thread that we've seen for 2 years. Now you're seeing the private investors bleed COMEX dry. At the same time, you're seeing the commercial banks suck all the metal outside of the ETFs because it's private. You don't know who's doing it, but you know the only ones who can do it are the large entities who have enough money to fund the initial baskets. Each withdrawal is going to be tens of millions of dollars, if not more. And the same thing happening on the London Metals Exchange. You have the most sophisticated traders in the world that are all doing the same thing, and that is removing counterparty risk and taking possession of an asset that has now been classified tier one, the only other tier one asset in the world. And so, yes, it would tell me that sophisticated investors always front run what's coming because they're in the know, they're closest to the information, and they've been cued in. Just like behind me, when Roosevelt confiscated gold, there's the executive order he used to confiscate gold in 1933. That was his first official act in office in 1933. Most of the very wealthy people in this country, the elite and the politicians and the ones that were keyed in, the know people, they were cued into this. They were told this is coming, and they sent their gold by steamship to safe deposit boxes in Europe, getting it out of harm's way. They never turned it in. So just like that happened in 33, this is what's happening now. The in the know people are saying, screw it, I'm out. And they're not only buying it, but more telling, they're distributing it, taking possession of it off of the exchanges. And this is what is so different than in times past.
So what are your thoughts on the RV happens, we go to gold back, is it going to put more gold in circulation? Or if people have a little extra floating around, should they land it now before the prices change or before the quantities get low? I mean, what if you were given?
I mean, the answer objectively to all of those questions are yes, resoundingly.
Okay.
Is that, that's like saying, should I put my seatbelt on right as I'm getting into a car crash? The answer is no. Should I blow up my life raft after we hit the iceberg? The answer is no. Should I buy home insurance after my house is on fire? The answer is no. And so preparing is something we all do reluctantly. My friend has a YouTube channel that used to be called Reluctant Preppers, and now it's Liberty and Finance. But the theme of reluctant preparation, it holds true, is that you have to prepare in advance and probably reluctantly, just like none of us want to pay our annual homeowner's policy. But you come home and there's your house is on fire or you broke a pipe or whatever it is. Now you're pretty psyched that you paid that premium. And that's just the way that insurance goes. And I think that that's what this is. It is insurance against a very unknown, god-awful event if it happens. And so, yes, you reluctantly prepare. You put whatever you can away in gold and silver, not because I sell gold and silver, but because tell me another place that you can put it that gives you non-dollar denominated liquidity with portability. That's been considered wealth for 5,000 years through every pandemic, through German hyperinflation, through the Great Depression, and still is immutable wealth. Gold and silver are wealth and have been since biblical times. So the answer is yes. I think that is the proper thing to do, is to, with any spare money you have, is to pay yourself first, get out of harm's way, get out of the way of the dollar. I think people understand that this is coming, but they're afraid to do something about it. And I get it. But if you are waiting for validation before you pull the trigger, you are going to be left in the cold. That I can assure you.
Well, I kind of knew the answer to that, but I theoretically wanted to ask it for everybody that hasn't maybe caught the first show or two that we've talked to you about it. And I know there's a lot of people that don't have extra right now, and it is, my heart's breaking for people right now. It's a choice of, do you pay the house payment or do you buy groceries and gas? It's an issue and it's real right now.
It is. You're right. And it's awful. I feel bad about it myself. I think that, this is the reality of where we find ourselves right now. And you have to do what you can for as big or as little as you possibly can. You have to take care of yourself first. And you can only save the world one person at a time, starting with yourself and your immediate family. So, you asked me my honest opinion. I think part of what has made me successful, Trina, is that I try to poke holes in my own arguments. I try to be objective as possible. And I think that if you're not, you are easily outed as a fraud. I don't see really a easy way out of this scenario. I don't whatsoever. And I think that you talk about revaluations, you talk about losing the world reserve status. You talk about the biggest money in the world doing very unusual tactics right now that all signal the same thing. I think that the signposts are there if you choose to see them, and do what you can, I guess, would be the phrase of the day.
Absolutely. So if you had, I'm just going to do this for the listeners that we have that we know probably have a lot more month than they do money. If they're paying themselves first and they've accumulated, what's the best way for them to take, like, bare minimum? Like, let's say they come up with $100 a month. Their $25 coffee habit a week comes up to $100 a month. At this point in the game, since you've watched things on a lot bigger scale than we have, do you go ahead and invest and get some with your $100, or do you wait and accumulate it for 2 or 3 months and get you $500? What would be your advice on how someone? I mean, I was a single mom for a long time, and it would have took a lot for me to have gotten $100 a month and then accumulate. But I don't want them to miss out if there's a good way for them to do that in between. I'm trying to find something for the little guys to be able to be safe with.
Well, I think the first thing to do is make a relationship with your local coin shop.
Okay.
As much as I would like to tell people, yeah, call me with, $50, it doesn't make sense when you're paying shipping for 1 or 2 ounces of silver. You're cutting off your at least 1 ounce of silver almost. Well, look, our shipping charges are $15 if under 100 ounces of silver. So it's not a lot. You could buy 2 ounces of silver and from us and pay $15 and wait for it in the mail. Or you could make a relationship with your local coin shop and stop in there every Friday when you get paid, or every other Friday, and with $30 or buy an ounce of silver. You do the best that you can.
Perfect.
And that's the truth of it. If someone had, let's say, $500 or more, well, it might make sense to buy from us because, even with the $15 shipping will probably be a better price than the local coin shop.
Okay.
Once you get up to the ability to buy 100 ounces of silver, which is, call it $2,500 or so, yeah, we're going to beat the pants out of the local coin shop and you're going to get free shipping and whatnot. But we understand that not everyone can do that. We are a large company that works with everyone. We have no order minimums, and most every company in my industry does. But I just want to be straight with people. If I'm that person, I'm going to my local coin shop and I'm going there every other Friday when I get paid, and I'm paying myself first, even if it's 1 silver coin, whatever. That to me is how you get ahead. And if you don't get into the habit of paying yourself first, if you don't get into the habit of saving, forcing yourself to do so, even at the expense of, paying your bills fully, so you spend $30 less on your utility bill, you'll catch up next week. I say this with all sincerity. If you don't find a way to get off that wheel, you never will. And it starts by paying yourself first. Believe me, the utility company's not going to come after you for shorting them by $30. Put a little note in there. I'm sorry, I'm low on cash this month. I'll pay catch up next month. And I say that because if you don't pay yourself first, which is the most important person to pay, you will be on that wheel forever. And when I started in this industry as a 19-year-old guy, I told you this story before. My dad and I, 33 years ago, started a company from nothing, right? My dad's middle name is Miles. His best friend's name is Franklin, who loaned us $60,000 to start a company. My parents sold their life insurance policies. We started in a 1-room office from nothing. And the only rule that was put forth by my father as a 19-year-old kid, and I went to the University of Minnesota, wanted to play baseball. I was going to be a baseball player. I hurt my knee. I'm very upset. He says, let's start a company together. Okay, great. Let's do it. And he said, but there's going to be one rule and only one rule. And if you don't abide by that rule, I'm going to fire you. Okay, Dad, what's that one rule? I can deal with that. He says, you're going to buy something every 2 weeks, period. If you don't, I'll fire you. Well, that was 33 years ago. I've owned the company for 2 decades. He's still my partner, I guess you could say. He's been retired for a long time, but I've honored my promise to him. And that is that I buy something every 2 weeks, even if it's 1 ounce of silver. And because if you don't, and it was the best gift he's ever given me, the best gift anyone's ever given me, the understanding of savings, the understanding of commitment to paying yourself first, to getting ahead. And if you don't, you fall behind, and so I think that this is intended. I mean, you look at the banks, you look at credit card bills, there's something in mathematics called the law of 70 seconds, where you take the interest rate and divide it into 72, tells you how long before your principal doubles. No coincidence that credit card bills start at 18%. 18 times 4 is 72. If all you do is pay the minimum, you will double your principal balance in 4 years, and all you are doing is servicing the interest. So the bottom line is that you need to find a way to pay yourself first, or you will never get off that that squirrel wheel, spinning and spinning and spinning, drive yourself crazy. Find a way to save, and that's the best way to do it.
I love that answer, but thank you for being honest, because there's silver and gold shops all over Arkansas. And I'm just saying that because if we've got them, I know everybody else has them. Y'all start looking for them. Go in and see what it would take to buy a silver $50 or silver. I mean, just find out what a troy ounce of silver is for them, because there's going to be a markup on it. It's not going to be what you see, it's showing on the market, because it just doesn't work like that, y'all. If it's at like, I think I had it worked out like if it's at $18, most places you're still going to pay like 26 to 29 bucks. Is that about right?
Well, that would be pretty hefty. I mean, with me, if right now silver's 19.5, I mean, you can buy things as low as $3 or $4 over the price of silver. And mind you that these premiums are much higher than they've been my entire career. And that's because more and more and more people are buying it and vying for a smaller and smaller pool of availability. That's price inflation, where more money chases a smaller pool of goods or services. And so, yes, the premiums are rising, and maybe in a brick and mortar shop, that's something that you see. They have the expenses that they have to pay to keep the lights on and whatnot. But, on one hand, you're helping your local business. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you also have something right there if you need it, not only to buy, but to sell. Maybe you need to buy groceries and you don't have any other way to do it but to sell an ounce or two of silver. We hope that stuff like that doesn't happen, but it does. So having a relationship with your local coin dealer is a good idea. And when it comes time to doing something a little bit larger, let's say $500 or more, even though we don't have an order minimum, it could be anything you want. Let me just make that clear. But this is a way for you to establish a relationship, and it's good to have multiple relationships. Yeah. So that's the truest answer I can give you. I think that's the best way I could explain it. And look, I own a metals company that's been around for 33 years, and there are times I'll go by my local coin shop and I'll go in and I'll buy something from them. I don't tell them what I do usually, but I just like to go in and peruse and see what else is going on out there in this universe that I have a kind of a jaded perspective with. So I think it's a great idea, actually.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We have a couple of questions that have come in.
Yeah.
Do you think that like after the RV that we'll actually have, like Zimbabwe's went to making, the gold coins again, and they're actually having to make another round of like smaller denominations because those weren't small enough for the people to use there in the country. I think that's what that question is asking, is if we see a future where we would have golden coins again in circulation.
Part of me would love that, but I think what they will do is if it comes to that, they will meld the two universes together of physical gold and distributed ledger technology. Here's your central bank digital currency, where the only way that it will gain veracity, the only way it will gain acceptance is if it is pegged to something. So a central bank digital currency on a distributed ledger that is not backed by anything is just a fiat currency. But if it were backed by gold, with the immutability and the veracity of that gold held on a distributed ledger for the world to see, it would give it credibility instantly. So I would think instead of carrying around gold coins, which you could argue is archaic, you could have distributed ledger technology, and down to the thousandth of an ounce or whatever on your iPhone or whatnot on your smartphone, that allows you to transact in metals, but doing it in a more 21st century mannerism. A country like Zimbabwe, I think, is behind the curve in many respects, and that's probably why they did it that way. It's priced so high that most people in Zimbabwe couldn't own it anyway. So it's somewhat disingenuous, but I don't know. I think the bottom line is that if we do go to a gold-backed currency, which I think is ultimately the plan, why else would they have made it tier one? The Bank of International Settlements reclassifying gold as tier one, if it weren't going to be part of what's coming next. And so, yeah, I think that there is a possibility that we would see gold backing a currency, maybe even a probability. Less likely that it's physical coins, more likely distributed ledger technology showing the immutability. And you say, look, they're going to do fractional coins. Well, that's because, you know, most Zimbabweans residents can't afford a 1 ounce coin. Well, what if you could buy, you know, like in Bitcoin, a 0.000013 of an ounce of gold? Well, that's all on the distributed ledger. Fine. And I think that's probably a more plausible, probable outcome.
Yeah. I lean to think that way too. Another one is, will we be able to have time to purchase silver and gold after we RV?
Don't know. Probably not.
No.
I mean, you know, I mean, these what if questions are tough, but here again, you know, would you have time to put on the parachute after the plane started to go down? I don't know. What do you think? And I don't mean to be trite, but I think that is what I was saying about reluctantly preparing. I mean, you know, I live here in southern Florida, and if I saw that a hurricane was brewing, you know, down in the Caribbean, that's not coming. Would I have time to run to the grocery store when it's 4 miles away? Probably not. Would there be even anything there? Probably not. So I think you have to pay yourself first. And you know, with gold and silver, if you never need to use it, you give it to your kids or your grandchildren or a charity or whatnot. If you do, not just for an emergency, maybe it's an opportunity down the road, you're damn glad you have it, but you have to have it before the emergency or the opportunity arises. And I'm not trying to throw that back at the person. I think that person, if he or she really thought about it, she would know the answer to that. And that is, if we see that, there will be blood in the streets, there'll be chaos. You don't want to start preparing after chaos ensues. You want to start preparing, hope you never need to use it, and you're damn glad if you have it, if you do need to use it. That's what I mean about paying yourself first, paying yourself before it becomes obvious. You know something? The reason that so few people ever succeed in investing is that they are reactionary. You can't be reactionary and succeed in investing. That means you're already following the herd. You have to be out front of the herd. You have to identify the primary trend. You have to identify where to put your money. And usually, in terms of being a contrarian, that's not an easy thing to do because you are acting on a contrarian basis, contrary to conventional or popular wisdom. And so acting as a contrarian allows you to prepare, right? And I would argue now, you guys, that if you're not a contrarian, you're going to be a victim, ultimately. Hope I'm wrong. But that's what this is all about, is preparing before the hurricane or before the plane goes down, or pick your metaphor. I think it's really important.
Okay, one more. What is the price of what are your thoughts on the price of what silver could go to after the RV? They've heard 200 to 10,000 per ounce.
Well, if you saw gold at $10,000, let's move gold to 2,000 an ounce. Let's be really, really conservative here. And I think gold will go way higher than that as it comes to peg a new world reserve system. But at 2,000 divided by 7 is $285 an ounce. And I use 7 because that's the geologic ratio right now in terms of what's coming out of the ground globally in mine supply. And we talked about this the first time I was on your show, and that was that silver is found in nature in a form called epithermal, real near the surface. The big deposits were found eons ago. And so you have a situation where for thousands of years, the geologic ratio or footprint between gold and silver was 16 to 1, 16 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. Well, now it's 7 to 1. It's depleting. So you have an asset that is coming out of the ground at 7 to 1, is massively needed in industry and in monetary applications. And so if all of the above ground silver starts to disappear for batteries and solar panels and Patriot missiles, in the tip of every Tomahawk cruise missile is 500 ounces of silver for the guidance system. Well, that blows up. That's gone forever. Most of the silver that's used in industrial applications is in tiny amounts. And when you're done with that application, it goes into a landfill. I mean, it's not recycled. So silver is a depleting asset, not only in terms of its utility and its applications, but also geologically. So pick whatever number you want for how high gold goes, being that it is now a tier 1 reserve asset, and it is backing, I think, ultimately a new financial system. Put gold at $10,000, divide by 7, $1,428 an ounce. Could it happen? Hell yeah. Look, in 30 years, I've learned one truism in finance, and only one. And that is markets go higher to the upside than anyone ever thinks possible, and will fall further to the downside than anyone ever thinks possible. I'll give you 2 examples. 1989, I start in this industry. The Japanese Nikkei is 40,000. They own Pebble Beach. They own Rockefeller Center. They own casinos in Vegas. They own ski resorts in Colorado. Anything with an engine or a motherboard, they make better than anyone in the world. Everyone thought they're taking over the world. And here we are 30 years later with their interest rates at or near zero the whole time. And their Nikkei at one point was down almost 80 or 90%. And 30 years later, it still hasn't even gotten back to where it is now, of 3/4 of the way there. It's like at 29,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. I haven't looked for the last few days, but it's never gotten anywhere near the 40,000 peak that it was when I started in this industry. And at the same time, the Dow Jones was 2,100. And I watched a guy, the first conference I went to in 1989 with my father, and he was laughed off the stage for saying the Dow Jones would go to 10,000. People booed him and literally laughed off the stage. And here it is the other day at 35,000 or 36,000. So no one ever would have thought that. And markets go higher to the upside than anyone ever believes, and falls further than anyone ever believes. And so when we pick these numbers, I'm picking a number based upon a geologic ratio with an assumption of how high gold can get. So forget about how high silver can get. Let's look at how high we think gold can get and divide by 7. And that's your geologic ratio. And realize that the ratio between gold and silver is nearly symmetrical for all of humanity. There's a 90%, or all of history rather, there's a 90% correlation in the way they move for all of time. So higher than people think possible. But again, normally I don't tell people to buy metals to get wealthy, because if you do, be careful what you wish for, because what that means is that the shit hit the fan. And because it's so high price, it's high price in a dollar that you might as well use as kindling to keep you warm. So I don't know what the answer is, but higher than anyone thinks possible.
I don't know, but what you just said sounds like you're fishing in the pond we've been watching.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and sorry about the transition there. I obviously just got home, but I was able, even though I was hearing a little bit of crackling on my end, I heard almost everything that you were talking about, Andy. And, I concur with Trina. Thank you so much for being honest with the question that we asked about, for individuals that really want to make a purchase. And, your advice was, if they didn't have X amount, to definitely make friends and go to, their local coin shop and stuff like that. I think, I appreciate you giving your true, honest advice for, obviously we know you're here to offer us, your knowledge and what you have, but you just letting people know really what they need to do to take care of themselves, whether you're the place for them to go or you're giving them another venue to go to that you feel would, you're talking about what would be best for them, not just would be best for you from a business perspective. And I really respect that and appreciate that, because I know I've had a lot of questions in regards to that. And, you and I have had a conversation about what I'm going to be doing now that I just got back from my vacation with my family. And so, I just think that that's awesome, because there's a lot of people that want to be proactive, and they're not in a position to be as proactive as they would like to be, but they don't want to be left out either, because they're definitely in the know, and they are definitely staying to tune as to what's going on and what we feel is truly going to happen at any moment now, because I did hear you guys talking about Nasara and Jasara. I didn't quite hear what you said about, whether you think it's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months, when Trina said, do people have time to say, invest $150 this month, invest $150 next month for the next 3 to 5 months? Or do we?
I did not put him on the spot and ask him.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you right now that I find it foolish for any analyst to ever say it's going to happen this day or in
Right.
2 weeks, because all it does is diminish your credibility. If you're wrong, and if you got it right, you're one lucky son of a bitch, because no one knows anything about that. I think the world is not about guarantees. The world is about a series of probabilities.
Absolutely.
The probability is that, mathematically speaking, that we reach that point in time. That point in time, you could argue, is already overdue.
Right.
But this is a ocean liner, not a speedboat. And ocean liners take a long time to make that circle, where a speedboat can go like that.
Right.
You can't do that in an ocean liner, that being the U.S. economy and World Reserve standard.
Exactly.
So I would basically say to you that mathematically, there is a high probability that we see these types of situations at some point. Look around us, what's happening with the coalition of all of these countries moving away from the West. Yes, there's a high probability that it happens. Could it happen tonight? Maybe we wake up tomorrow morning to a new reality, and wouldn't surprise me. But I would like to hope. I have 3 young kids. Well, one's not so young anymore. He's 22 and just moved to Manhattan to take a job at Price Waterhouse. I guess I have to realize he's a man. But I got 2 daughters. One's 18, heading to college on Sunday, and one is 15, off to 10th grade tomorrow morning. So I got young kids. I'm hoping that this isn't the world that they grow up in all of a sudden. I'm hoping that somehow we're able to fix it. But I would argue that we are probably a long ways away from fixing it, if not an inability to fix it. So we have to prepare for these probabilities, which seem to be on the horizon. How far is that horizon? Couldn't tell you. But it's to me, there's a certain amount of inevitability in this equation. It's just a matter of, what does it take for us to get there? What's the catalyst? How fast does it happen? And when you look at the way certain things happen in the world, World War I, well, had Arch Ferdinand Duke not been assassinated, then we wouldn't have been dragged into World War I. That something can happen like that flips the switch.
Right.
Don't know what that something is. But anyways, bottom line is, I think that you prepare for inevitability, for a probability. You hope to God you're wrong. And the worst case scenario is you pass gold on and silver on to your kids. You donate food to a food shelf. You drink the water that you have. You know, whatever it may be.
Right.
Preparation, if done so appropriately, will do nothing but increase your peace of mind and help you sleep at night.
Absolutely. I do have one more question, if I can ask this, and this is on behalf of, again, several of our viewers who have texted me since the last time you were on, and they've asked me to make a personal phone call to you, which, again, I have not done yet, but just because I just got back. But the question was, and let me see if I can phrase this correctly. Can an individual buy X amount from you, that $500 margin or over, and can that money, I think when we spoke before, you said that money, like say if I bought something from you, right, and I wanted to disperse that within my family, my 2 kids, that there is a way, and yes, I can do that. The question was, can a family or a person buy X amount from you and share that with individuals who are outside of family members? Say I wanted to buy $2,500 from you, and I know my XYZ can't afford it, and I want to gift them whatever, but they're not in my family. Can you do that, or can you not do that?
Well, I think you can. No one's going to tell on you for doing that. So I think the answer is yes, you can. I mean, if you're talking, where it would become a problem is if that number went from, instead of 2,500 to 100,000 or 50,000 or some really big number. The IRS may have a problem with that. If person were audited, well, how'd you get it? Well, it was given to me. Well, there's something called a charitable gift donation or a gift exemption where you can give up to, I think, $14,000 a year to someone. And I don't know if it's a family member or not, but the bottom line is simply this. I would argue that if you want to buy a new Ferrari and give it to someone, well, that's your prerogative. Good luck on that. And so you buy gold and silver, you want to give it to someone, go ahead. I don't think you would ever get in trouble for giving something away. I don't think they'd ever get in trouble for giving something away. You know, it's if you did this for, you know, like, for example, if my father bought $1 million of gold and gave it to me under the table without telling the IRS he just did that, well, there might be a problem with that, because that would be considered income for me. And let's just say that it would be a way to avoid inheritance tax for him, or the estate tax for us. Bottom line is that in general, yes, of course you can do that. And that's one of the things about precious metals. It's one of the last few things that is private in a world of decreasing privacy and increased litigation. 87,000 new IRS agents. You know, the walls are closing in terms of what is private anymore. But you know, look, I've given away plenty of silver. I give silver coins away all the time. I give them as tips to waiters and waitresses. I give them at conferences. I give them to guys I play golf with to use as a ball marker. I mean, I think there's something to be said about being generous and to opening people's eyes to sound money. And that's my motivation. All the birthday presents that I gave my kids' friends when they were growing up, they all hated it, but they all say to me now, God, I love that I have 6 coins that you gave me over the 6 birthday parties your daughter was at, and I'm not selling these ever. They probably cried when I left when they were 6 years old, thinking I wanted a, you know, G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, and instead all I got was a silver eagle. Well, you know, the answer is yes, and I think you could do that. And I think, you know, once you start getting up into larger amounts is when you're going to have a problem with things. But giving away a coin or a 2 or a 10-ounce bar, yeah, why not? I think that's great.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that answer.
I'm just sitting here thinking my son would have loved to have been your son's friend, because I'm telling you, if you give him a silver coin, it would have rocked his world. He's all about money and coins and stuff. That would have made his day.
Well, then he's ahead of the curve already. He understands sound money, even if he doesn't fully get it. Don't know how old he is, but I'll simply say that that's a gift that you can give to children, is the idea of sound money, the idea of savings. Every person that has ever been hired by me and my company, I tell them the same thing my dad told me. You're going to buy something every 2 weeks, and if I find out you didn't, there's going to be hell to pay. I don't care if you buy 1 ounce, because I feel that that's my job. I feel it was the very best gift anyone's ever given me. My children, always I make them save every paycheck they get. My kids have been working since they were old enough to have a job, all of them, because I think it's very important to understand how hard it is to make money, and even more so how hard it is to keep it and save it. I find it easier to make money than it is to keep it and to save it. And so it's really important. And it's a lesson that has allowed me the ability to have peace of mind, because for 33 years I have built a nest egg that I would have pissed away had I not learned that lesson. Not all of it maybe, but a good portion of it. And I don't miss any of it. And when I look at what I've accumulated, it gives me peace of mind. Well, when you're young, you have that going for you. You have time. And that time will enable you to allow, you know, the compounding of your efforts work for you. Compounding of interest work for you if you're doing things, saving in a traditional manner, in savings account, or however you choose to save, whether it be precious metals or something else. Do it and become regimented. Anything in life, whether it be working out, dieting, having a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife, it takes effort, it takes work every day. You got to put something into it. Well, the same thing goes into saving. And if you don't habitually become a saver, you will end up regretting it later in life. And, you know, my dad has this great analogy. He talks about life being a roll of toilet paper, where when you're young, you don't notice it spinning. But as you get older, you become more cognizant of how fast it's spinning and how close you're coming to the cardboard tube. And I think that's just the way life goes. You know, you wake up one morning, you're like, where the hell did all this time go? And that's why it's so important to start now. Teach your kids, talk to them about saving, bring them to the coin shop with you, tell them to take their allowance and put it into an ounce of silver, whatever it is. And next week, you know, maybe you'll match it for them or whatever it is.
Good idea.
It's a great gift to teach people how to save, and because no one's going to do it for you.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much. It's always an education with you. I love it, sir. And thank you for your patriotic duty for educating those of us that probably didn't get as much as we should have. I mean, my mom did spend time with my son teaching him the stock market. I mean, he was 4 to 6 and she taught him how to read the ticker at the bottom of, you know, she'd have Bloomberg on all day long. And that the love of money and coins and different things, that's always been his wheelhouse. And so he has foreign currency now. And for Christmas, he got silver. So
well, that's great. And more, and equally as important as getting foreign currency and getting silver is explaining the significance of it and what that really means. And it's a responsibility, and it's one that, just like working out and trying to get in really good shape, you need to do the same thing with your finances. Because if you look at the cause of divorce, if you look at the cause of stress, if you look at the cause of anxiety, well, there's a million things that cause those, but many of them are real close to the top in finances or the lack thereof. And you don't have to be, look, I have a friend who has worked at Costco since I can remember, 30 plus years. He's a multimillionaire, and he's worked at Costco for 30 years. And he's you know, he rose up in the company, and he's in a managerial level, still goes there every morning and works every morning wearing a Costco uniform. But he's a multimillionaire because he saved, and he bought stock in Costco, even if it was just a little bit. Anytime he could do it, he put it away. And time and the compounding of interest works for you. And the compounding of interest might be the eighth wonder of the world. And there's a chart that next time I come on, I'll try to show you. A mentor of mine, his name was Richard Russell, God rest his soul, he's dead, but he showed a chart that's really resonated with me when I was very young. And there was column A and column B. I'm going to butcher this, but it'll be pretty close. Column A was a young man who started from the time he was maybe, I don't remember what it was, like 18 years old. Maybe even they started it earlier. I know I'm going to butcher this, but something to the extent that he started when he put the money into an interest-bearing investment, and he, I think the assumption was like 6% interest. And he put money in from the time he was 6 years old to the time he was 18 or 19 or 20 years old, just like 12, 13 years. And that money compounded at 6% every year, but he put it in and he contributed for like 12 years and stopped. And then there's the column B, the person who starts at 25 years old and puts a certain amount of money in the same amount that person put in, but puts it in every single year until he's retirement age. And at the last double, the person who put it in at the beginning and stopped 12 years later ends up with more money than the person that put it in every single year, because the compounding of interest, that last double, where the rule of 70 seconds, 6% interest into 72 means that every 12 years your principal doubles. Well, that last double, as they got to a retirement age, put them ahead of the person that waited until they were 30 years old or 25 years old and then contributed every year thereafter. It's about letting the laws of compounding interest work for you instead of against you. And the same thing is true even if it doesn't accumulate interest, and that's gold and silver. It's just as building your wealth. And I know we've beaten this into the ground tonight, but it's really near and dear to me and very, very important.
I love that. And there's a lot of people that weren't taught that as children.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
I'll find this chart. I'll do my darndest to find it. It's really quite extraordinary. And it shows just how powerful compounding of interest truly is. And that's why the credit card companies and the banks are forever rich, because
Yeah.
They learned that secret long ago. And most of us are slaves to compound interest. You want to make it your friend, not your foe.
And
Yeah.
it's almost that, I mean, where is there to invest anywhere anymore? Almost that you can get compound interest really flowing in your favor. You
Yeah,
know,
that's a good point, and touche to you for that. You know, when I started in this industry, the 10-year or the 10-year Treasury bond was at 9%. The first house I bought in 2000 or 1994, interest rates were 8 7/8. So you know, yeah, now they're coming back up slowly, but the 10-year Treasury yield is under 3%. So it's much harder to find that interest, no question about it, that compounding, especially in an inflationary environment where inflation is running 3 times the rate of return, you go backwards. It's a difficult, challenging time right now. And this is why I err on the side of precious metals, which have traditionally been viewed as a hedge against inflation. So traditional investments are maybe not what they used to be. And unconventional times call for unconventional measures. So yeah, I think that it is time to look at the world a little bit differently, and gold and silver is as good of a place as anywhere to preserve your assets.
Right. That's amazing. You know, the advice you gave a minute or two ago, I never thought about that, but you know, I have a 14-year-old little girl, and I think even though I will be doing business with you, I'm going to take her to the local coin shop, and you know, she's really diligent. She's actually better with her money than I am. But you know, you gave me some great. You've planted some great seeds for me to kind of do with her, or at least expose her to, and see what her response is, and let her kind of see what I'm doing. So thank you.
Pleasure is mine. It's
Thank
always nice to see you, ladies, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. I'll look forward to coming back real soon, and I hope you stay well in the meantime.
you bet. And for anybody that wants to know how you can contact Andy and Miles Franklin, I've been running the ticker at the bottom of the page, and it's just email info@milesfranklin.com.
The
He's
new
working.
website will be done. The new website will be done in about 2 weeks, so we're getting there. It's getting closer and closer. We'll allow people to purchase. You'll have your own landing page. It would say, you know, something like milesfranklin.com/redneck rhapsody or whatever. Whatever it is, we'll get her done for you, and that'll be real soon. In the meantime, yeah, send us an email, and we'll make sure you get personalized service and the best price and the best advice, and we'll make sure it's a good experience. That I can promise you.
Awesome. We couldn't leave without you know, giving you a plug. And one thing that I know you probably don't see, because I tried to find you on True Social. I don't know what your handle is, or if you're even on there.
I don't
No,
know what it is. I am the most the least
tech
social
savvy.
media person that there is. So I mean, I'm on LinkedIn.
Well, I did hashtag Miles Franklin, so I started you a hashtag over there. But someone saw it in the True Social world and messaged and said, "Oh, I buy silver and gold from them. That was the best experience ever." So just to let you know, people are, and I don't even think they were like someone that watches our show. So it was kind of cool that it's blessed to know that we're partners with people that other people can, you know, just research that.
Well, I appreciate that very much, not only to him or her, but to you guys as well. And
Yeah.
you know what? We'll trudge our way through all of this together. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to be associated with such nice people like yourselves as well. So
You
I
bet.
hope you guys have a great night. I think my voice is about ready to give out. It's been a long day. It's 9 o'clock here in Florida, so I'm gonna head off and
We'll
try
let
and
you
actually get
go,
a
and
little bit of
we'll
sleep
pray this
tonight. But
out
yeah,
afterwards. All
you
right.
guys stay well, and look forward to seeing you again next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. You praying, Chica, or me?
You can this evening.
God better be glad I don't have a problem praying. Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you. We give you glory and honor. And Lord, we are such humble servants to be able to have such a great audience. And God, I stand in awe of the relationships that you've brought into my path this last year and a half, 2 years. It's just been humbling to see the people that come together and the camaraderie and the people that want a like-mindedness for the world to go in a certain direction. But we do stand here, Lord, asking, what do you need us to do to bring this to fruition, to end this evil, to stop the killing of the children and trafficking? Father God, we just really pray, Heavenly Father, that you just watch over each and every one of our military members, each and every person that is trying to make great things happen in this world on a whole, and just bring us back here tomorrow night all together, hopefully in a celebration, because we know, Father God, in your word that the wealth of the wicked was stored up for the righteous, and we are standing here righteously waiting to do great things in our humanitarian projects with all that you're bringing to us. With that, we love you, Lord. We praise you and give you honor. Amen.
Amen. Good night, everybody.
Night.